Hi everyone. The story I've chosen this week is something that happens a lot in our family. It's to do with underwear. Where's the underwear? Where are the pants? Where are the socks? Sometimes you can find the pants and you can't find the socks. Sometimes you can find the socks and not the pants. And sometimes you can only find one sock. And what use is one sock? We always have arguments about where is the underwear, so I thought you might quite enjoy this story. If you're ready, I will begin. The story is called The Monster That Stole My Underwear. Chapter 1. I've got a problem. It's a really weird problem. It started a few weeks ago. I haven't told any of my friends about it because I'm kind of embarrassed. The first day it happened, it was a day that started out like any other. Adam, time to get up, I heard my mum shout. As usual, I yawned and stretched and snuggled back into my pillow. I don't know about you, but I really don't like getting up in the morning for school. The funny thing is, as much as I don't like getting up in the morning, I don't like going to bed at night when I'm supposed to either. Adam, get up now. Time to get ready for school. Mum usually had to ask me a few times before I finally got up. After changing out of my pyjamas that morning, I started to get dressed. The first thing I always did was put on my underwear. I opened the drawer and had a shock. There was no underwear. I had socks and jeans and a shirt, but no pants. What was going on? Mum, I yelled downstairs, I haven't got any underwear in my underwear drawer. Sorry to hear that, Adam, she shouted back. Just hurry up and get dressed. We're running late and I don't want you to be late for school. I couldn't believe it. She couldn't seem to care less that I didn't have any underwear. She was probably so busy she wasn't paying attention to what I was saying. I sat on the edge of my bed. What was I going to do? I felt there was only one thing I could do. So I put on my socks and my trousers and my shirt. I would just have to go to school with no underwear. I went downstairs to where my older sister Katie was sitting at the table eating cereal. She always got up a lot earlier than me and was ready on time. Now that she was getting older, she was spending more and more time doing her hair and other girly stuff. Me? I could get ready in 1 minute flat. You're late again, said Katie, looking at me with that look of hers. You've got about 30 seconds to eat your breakfast. No problem, I said, splashing some milk on my cereal. I started to eat as fast as I could. Katie looked at me and rolled her eyes. She always did that, so I didn't pay any attention to her. About a minute later, we heard Mum's voice shouting from the kitchen. Adam, you have 1 minute to brush your teeth and then get in the car. Quickly, I bounded up the stairs, brushed the pearly whites and bounded back downstairs, ran out of the door and jumped into the car. As soon as I slammed the car door shut, Mum backed out of the driveway and got ready to drive us to school. I made it to school with only 1 minute to spare. Phew. I don't know about your house, but this is how it is in our house most mornings. As I walked into the classroom, I remembered I wasn't wearing any underwear. I didn't like it. It felt funny. Tomorrow, I thought, there had better be underwear in my underwear drawer. Chapter 2. The next day, it was another mad rush of getting out of bed, getting dressed and getting out the door. I opened my underwear drawer and there was no underwear again. I couldn't believe it. I put my PJs back on and went to my mum's room. Mum was looking in the mirror, doing her makeup. Mum, I've got no underwear again, I said, really annoyed. Do you know where my underwear is? I have no idea, she said, quickly applying her lipstick and smacking her lips. Now, you've got about 5 minutes before I expect you in the car. She left quickly, going downstairs, muttering something about needing to make my lunch. Once again, I gulped down my breakfast and just made it to the car on time, without my underwear. I sighed. My mum didn't seem to be too concerned that her only son was going to school without any underwear on. Then a thought popped into my head. What if someone was stealing my underwear? There was a pile of boxer shorts in my underwear drawer, and then, now, there wasn't. It was the only explanation that I could think of, and I was determined to get to the bottom of it. Mrs Lambert is my teacher. That morning we had to write a story about anything we wanted to. Now remember, Mrs Lambert said, every sentence starts with a capital letter and ends with a full stop. Can I just say that's really good advice? I like the sound of Mrs Lambert. Sentences start with capital letters and end with full stops. As we worked on our stories, she walked around the classroom looking at the stories that we were writing. I was writing a story about a boy who had no underwear. I didn't want to say it was me. Finally, it was break time. When we got outside, we played a game. Girls chased the boys. If the girls caught us, they took us prisoner, and we had to stand against the school wall until all the boys were caught. Cassie was chasing me. She was determined to get me, and I was determined to get away. Her long brown ponytail swung back and forth as she chased me in a circle. "You can't catch me," I shouted. I turned to run in the other direction, and then I fell. I completely wiped out. My knee was all scratched and bleeding. It really hurt. I tried not to cry because, I'm getting a bit big for that now. Mrs Dixon, one of the other teachers, came over to help me. She bent over and inspected my knee. "Oh, Adam," she exclaimed, "you really took a fall. Let's get you to the medical room." It took a few minutes before I could get up and walk. When I was ready, Miss Dixon helped me to the medical room by the office. When we got there, she told me to wait. She would get Mrs Bumble, who would come, and she would help me. "Just wait here a couple of minutes, Adam," she said. "Mrs Bumble won't be long." She walked out of the door, leaving me with a wet piece of gauze on top of my scraped and bleeding knee. As I waited, I thought about the mystery of my missing underwear. Where were all the boxer shorts? Who was stealing them? And why would anybody want them? Up at the top of the wall, near the ceiling, there was a vent, an opening in the wall. I was looking up in that direction when suddenly it appeared. My eyes popped out of my head and I gasped. It was a monster. A blue, furry monster with short horns. He looked even more mischievous than me. I blinked my eyes hard and then opened them again. He was still there and he was laughing at me. Not only that, but he was holding something in his hands. He was holding a pair of my boxer shorts. I stared and he chuckled some more. Just then, the door opened and the monster disappeared. "Hello, Adam. Another scrape," said Mrs Bumble. "Let's have a look at your knee." She cleaned my knee and then took out some bandages. She asked me which one I wanted. Some of the plasters had pictures on them of superheroes, basketball players and princesses. Why was she showing me the one with princesses on? I don't know. I took the superhero bandage and we put it on. "You'll feel better soon, Adam," Mrs Bumble said, and she gave me a smile and told me to go back outside. When I went outside, I wasn't thinking about my knee. I was thinking about the blue monster that I'd seen through the vent. The one holding my underwear. Chapter 3. For the rest of the day, all I could think about was that blue monster and that he'd been holding my underwear. I didn't know how he was doing it, but somehow he was sneaking into my bedroom and stealing my boxer shorts. I knew it had to stop. It wasn't right that the monster was stealing my underwear, whereas yet he was laughing about it. Also, I was sick and tired of not having any underwear to wear. It's not very comfortable, you know. I came up with a plan to catch that monster. I thought that the monster might be coming into my bedroom at night. Was he coming into my bedroom every night? I was going to try and find out. So, that night when I went to bed, I put on my Spider-Man pyjamas and got out my torch and a bunch of my favourite comics. Then I turned out the light, turned on my torch and started to read. I loved reading my comics and knew that it would help me pass the time quickly. My plan, of course, was to stay up as long as possible and see if I could catch the monster. If I caught him, I was going to demand that he gave back my boxer shorts. I was going to tell him that it was wrong to take other people's things. I continued reading my comics. I loved reading them over and over and over, even if I knew what was going to happen. That noise was the road outside my house. It's perfectly fine. When I woke up, the torch was still on. The comic book that I had been reading was on my chest and sunlight was streaming through my window. Oh, I groaned. "Adam, get up," said Mum, knocking on my door. Oh, I couldn't believe it. I'd fallen asleep. 1 minute I'd been wide awake, reading my comic, and the next minute I was hearing my mum's voice calling me. After washing my face, I went back to the bedroom and scrambled to get dressed. Once again, there was no underwear in my underwear drawer. But then I got another shock. No way! It couldn't be. But it was true. Not only was there no underwear in my empty drawer, but now my sock drawer was empty too. It was bad enough not to have any underwear, but now I had no socks as well. I knew it had to be that sneaky, mischievous monster. Somehow, in some way, I was going to catch him. I ran downstairs and started to eat my morning food, and I put on my shoes. "Adam, you've got no socks on," said Katie, looking down at my bare feet. "Yeah, I know," I said. I didn't know what else to say. If I told her that someone, actually a monster, was stealing my socks and underwear, she would think I was crazy. She shook her head and rolled her eyes as she usually did. "Hurry up," she says. "You know Mum is usually running late." Just then, my mum shouted that we were leaving. I quickly put on my shoes, slung my backpack over my shoulder and ran out of the door. That morning in school, Mrs Lambert told us that we could continue writing our stories. She handed out our stories, and when she got to me, she said, "I wonder who is stealing that boy's underwear. I can't wait to find out." I worked hard on my story. I wrote about how the boy had seen the monster in the medical room holding his boxer shorts and how he tried to trap him. Then I wrote about how the boy's socks had all disappeared as well. I couldn't tell her that the story was about me. I didn't want Mrs Lambert to think that I was crazy. At break time we played Boys Catch the Girls. I chased Cassie. I was determined to get her because she had chased me so much before. She ran fast to the end of the school. I didn't know that girls could run so fast. Actually, she could run faster than me, and I'm pretty quick. Cassie turned sharp and got away from me. I stood panting, trying to catch my breath, when I saw it again. The blue furry monster. There he was, standing in the corner. There was no one else around. No one else could see him. My eyes popped out of my head. There he was again. He was holding, this time, a pair my socks. He was laughing again and showing his big white teeth. And then he twirled the socks around. After that, he put the socks on his horns. I couldn't believe it. That monster had the nerve to steal my underwear, and now he was stealing my socks as well. Kyle came running up to me. "Adam," he shouted, "come on, we need you to help Cassie and Kaylee. We're having trouble catching them." As he ran up, the monster disappeared, taking my socks with him. Somehow I had to find a way to trap that monster. Chapter 4. For the next few days, I still had no underwear at all. I'd been thinking about ways to trap this monster. It was hard though. How do you trap a monster that can appear and disappear like that? But something had to be done. It wasn't nice not wearing socks. My feet were sweating inside my shoes, and I won't even talk about what not wearing pants was like. That day in class we were practicing telling the time. I was starting to get better at it, but it was very tricky. "Don't worry," said Mrs Lambert. "Learning the time can be difficult. I promise one day you will all be able to do it." For our homework, she gave us work on telling the time. There were some clocks, and under the clocks you had to write down what time it was, and on the other side of the paper there were some clocks, and you had to write down and then draw the hands on the clock. When Mrs Lambert handed me my homework, she bent down and said quietly in my ear, "Now Adam, I want this homework to be done. You haven't been handing in your homework, and I don't want to hear any more excuses. If you don't hand it in, I'm going to have to phone your mum." "I'll do it, Mrs Lambert," I said. I didn't want her calling my mum either. I couldn't wait to get home from school. My grandma was visiting us, and she was staying for a couple of weeks. I loved it when my grandma came to visit. I wished she could live closer. My birthday was the following week, and my grandma had time to visit for my birthday. When I opened the door, my grandma got up from the couch. I went up to her and gave her a big hug. She was beaming and laughing when she hugged me. "Wow, you've grown so much," she said. "I can't believe it. Are you keeping out of trouble, Adam?" "Yeah, right," said Katie. Trouble is his middle name. After dinner, when all the dishes were done and it wasn't yet time for bed, my grandma, Katie and I played a Wii game. It was so much fun. I knew I was lucky to have such a cool grandma. Katie then went up to her room to call a friend, and Grandma and I sat on the sofa together. "Adam, I've got something for you," she said. "I was going to give it to you on your birthday, but I've decided to give it to you now." She reached over at the end of the sofa and she gave me a package. "Thanks," I said. I opened up the package, and when I did, I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Inside the package was some underwear, some pants and some socks. "Grandma," I exclaimed, "these are perfect. Thank you so much." I was so happy. It was one of the best presents I had ever got. I whooped and went upstairs. I'm not sure any other kid in the whole world would be so happy to get a present of pants and socks, but I was on that day. The next week was fantastic. I had socks and I had underwear every day. But then, do you know what happened? Yep, they all disappeared again. I sighed. I was wondering if I could tell one of my friends about this monster. Maybe somebody else would have a good idea about how to trap this monster. At the end of the week, Mrs Lambert asked us to hand in our homework. I looked in my backpack. It wasn't there. I knew I had done it. I looked again. No, it definitely wasn't there. I didn't say anything. I knew that sooner or later Mrs Lambert would call me up and have a talk with me. Later in the morning, I had to use the bathroom. I had to go to the toilet. After getting permission, I left the classroom. Walking into the toilets, I stopped in my track. My jaw dropped. Guess who was there? Yes, it was Blue. It was the blue furry monster, and he was laughing at me as usual. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. My socks were dangling from his horns, and in the other hand he was waving my boxer shorts, and in the other he was holding my homework. If this had been happening to anybody else, I would have laughed my head off at the sight of the monster. But it was happening to me, and I didn't think it was very funny. "Give my stuff back," I said. He gave me a great big grin and threw my underwear over his shoulder. And then he started ripping my homework sheet in half. I ran forward. He disappeared, and so did the socks and my underwear and the homework. How was I going to get my things back now? I came to that conclusion that it was impossible. I didn't know then that I would soon be in for a very big surprise. Chapter 5. My birthday was the following week. I couldn't wait. I was having a party and all my friends were coming over. We were going to have a fun time with lots of games and cake and ice cream and, of course, presents. "Hey Adam, what do you want for your birthday?" asked my friends Blaine and Joey. "Not much," I said. "You could just get me some socks and pants, that sort of thing if you want to." They laughed. They couldn't believe it. They thought it was the funniest thing ever, but actually I was serious. That was exactly what I wanted. When I got home from school that day, my mum said she wanted to talk to me. "You can have all your friends over for your birthday on one condition," she said, and she was looking very serious. "What's that?" I said. I couldn't imagine what that would be. "On the condition that you clean your room," she said. "It looks like a tornado and a hurricane went through at the same time." And I suppose she was right, especially since she stopped cleaning it for me like she used to. Tomorrow is Saturday, and I want that room cleaned for no friends. I would be too embarrassed for anyone to see your room in that state. So, the next day, my mum gave me black bags and a plastic box. She told me to put the stuff in I definitely wanted to keep and then put everything else in the black bags. "If this room isn't cleaned, then no friends," she said. And I knew she meant business. So I got down and started to clean my room. You wouldn't believe how hard I had to work. Grandma offered to help me, but my mum said no, I had to do it myself. There were piles of comics and cards and collections of books and games and toys all over the place. Beside that, there were clothes strewn from one side of the room to the other. I found some t-shirts I had completely forgotten that I even owned. And then I froze to the spot. I saw something completely unexpected. I didn't know what to think, but under a pile of stuff, there were 4 pairs of pants. I went to another pile of stuff and started to go through that as fast as I could, and sure enough, there were more pants and also socks under there. I went to another pile and I found more pants and more socks, and then there was one more surprise left. Under the piles of stuff, I also found my homework sheets. I even found the time one from last week. It was under my bed. I smoothed it out and put it in my backpack to take to school on Monday, and then I called my mum. "Mum," I shouted, "come here. I need to talk to you right now." "Come in," she called, and I could hear her footsteps coming up the stairs and into the bedroom. "Well, this looks much better," she said. "Don't give up now, keep going." "Mum, what's going on?" I said, pointing to the pile of pants and socks. "What do you mean?" she asked. "I told you weeks ago that I couldn't find my pants and socks, and you told me that you had no idea where they were." Well, I didn't have any idea, she said. I worked out they were probably somewhere in this room, but I literally had no idea where they could be. Why didn't you come and look for them? I asked. My mum pointed to the dirty laundry bin. Do you remember I told you weeks ago? I told you I was sick and tired of picking up your dirty pants and socks. I said I was only going to wash the clothes that were in the laundry basket. So if they were in there, they would get washed. If they weren't, they didn't. But you said that before and you always pick them up anyway, I gasped. I told you that this time I meant it, she said, and I did. You're not too bad at putting your trousers and your shirts in a laundry basket, but for some reason you can't seem to put your pants and your socks in there too. I didn't know what to say. Mum smiled, and before she walked out, she told me to keep cleaning. She also told me to put the dirty pile of socks and pants and whatever else in the laundry basket. She was going to do the laundry later that day. That evening, I looked outside the window into the back garden, and I could see the clothesline, and hanging up there was a long, 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 long line of my socks and pants. I had never seen a more beautiful sight in all my life. Last chapter. The following week, I had my birthday party. All my friends came round to my house and we had a really good time. We all had fun jumping on the trampoline and playing ball and running through the sprinkler and playing games. Afterwards, we had this really, really big birthday cake and I opened my presents. My room was clean and tidy, and I had to admit I was glad it was. I promised my mum I would try harder to keep it clean. There is one thing I do know for sure. My socks and my pants are always going to get put in that laundry basket. A funny thing also happened. Since I found all my underwear, socks and homework, I have never seen the blue furry monster again. And even though he was cute and funny, I don't ever want to see him again. Not ever. The end.